very warm welcome, Jan. And thank you so much for taking out your time for this interview that we are conducting for our upcoming campaign on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And we have been following your nonprofit's work, and we have been really appreciating your work. And that is why we eagerly wanted to connect with you, especially on this occasion. So without any further ado, I would like to understand the most basic thing about the issue that we're discussing here. So in the 21st century, when people are a bit more educated, aware about their rights, about what is going on around in their society, why is it still important to talk about the rights of people of color?
Okay, there is so much to that question and so much to unpack. So yes, here we are 22 years deep into this 21st century. And the work that Black Women for Wellness does is really to lift the voices, the experience, the lives of Black women and girls. And we work from a reproductive justice framework. I'm going to talk a little bit more about reproductive justice in a moment to let you know what I really mean when I say that. But in 2022, our maternal and infant death rate is about the same, maybe worse, than it was in 1619 when the first slave ship landed in Jamestown, Virginia, in the United States. So what that means is 246% more likely that a Black woman will die from giving birth. And it is 11 times more likely that a Black baby will die before their first birthday than anyone else in the United States. So for us, this work is very much heartfelt. It is very much passion for me. I say that also because I'm a new grandmother, and my grandchild is 4 months old. And I had to stop looking at data. I had to stop looking at facts and statistics and focus on the health and well-being of my daughter and my grandchild. To not be just super afraid every day, right? Super afraid that, my daughter would die during this pregnancy or giving birth. And because, my grandchild was less than a year old, it's still something that creeps into my consciousness. That fear that I have to beat down and say, no, not today, no fear. So, and I say this because also it is not a particular segment of Black women. You would think that maybe it was, Black women who were low income. No, that's not true, right? A Black woman with a college education, a spouse, a job, is still more likely to lose her life and her child than a cigarette smoking, 8th grade education white woman in the United States. So what makes that reality for us is the anti-Black racism that is continuous. It's at the micro, the macro, it's at every level. It's small aggressions, and it's being killed on camera for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, even though it was longer with George Floyd. It is Breonna Taylor being shot in her bed and those people walking through. So those are the reasons why we do the work we do at Black Women, because we are trying to lift the lives and the experience of Black women and Black girls. I would say also that when we lift up Black women and girls, then we lift up everyone. It's not just us when we do our work. It is everyone who benefits from it. Right? So, and we do that. If we look at the voting records, because Black Women for Wellness has a robust civic engagement program. When we look at the voting patterns of Black women in this country, we absolutely are are the moral compass of this country. We are the moral conscience. Our votes are always on the side of progress, of the right, in terms of the moral right, not the ultra-conservative right. But we are lifting people. We are for voting rights and for human rights and for girls and gender and justice when you look at our voting records. So when we empower Black women and girls, we empower a group of people who are conscious, right? Who are about doing the right thing, who are about lifting everyone, not simply just themselves.
Wow, Jan, I think that really moved me. And first of all, many, many congratulations to you on becoming a grandmother. And I too cannot even imagine how brave it is and how strong it is on your part to see this situation from this point of view. Like you said that the mortality rate has not decreased at all, like since the time that we were not even in existence, and still taking care of your daughter and taking care of your grandchild. I think this is something amazing, and that is not just it. I think you are an inspiration for all those women who are struggling with these kind of situations in the society. So that is so brave of you and so courageous of you. I think that is something that moved me right here. And the next question, I would like to take a cue from your answer only. You said that you termed, in fact, a new term for me. You coined a new term for me, reproductive justice. Right. So I would like to know more about this reproductive justice. What is it? In what context are we talking about? And does it apply on all the nations across, like developing, developed, and be it of any level, or is it just something that relates to your society and like the people around you?
So when we say reproductive justice, it is a term that is intersectional, because what we're talking about is social justice, right? And we're talking about social justice from a reproductive lens, right? So with women, the shortcut we use when we talk about reproductive justice is the right to have a child or not have a child, or to raise your child, right? But it is all those things that come along with those rights. Just because you have rights does not mean you have the ability to exercise those rights, right? So part of what we do, for example, when we say reproductive justice, we talk about housing, we talk about migration, we talk about climate, we talk about exposure to toxic chemicals in terms of environment, we talk about voting. So there are so many intersecting issues around this issue of reproduction, in this country in particular right now. We're looking at the Supreme Court that is dismantling the right to abortion, right? It is absolutely, with Texas and with Mississippi, absolutely removing the ability of women to secure an abortion in those states. So we're looking at, how does this impact the rest of the states, right? But the U.S. was not the only country that is struggling with the issue around abortion. So there are other countries that are way ahead of us in cities like Mexico City, right? And other places that are way ahead of us in terms of creating access for a woman to have autonomy over her body, to be able to make a decision about whether or not she wants to go through the pregnancy. So abortion is a global issue. If we look at the issue of housing, housing is if you are grappling with the decision about whether or not to have a child, right? Part of it is, where am I going to raise my child? Do I have a roof over my head? Do I have safe running water? Do I have warmth from the cold? Or do I have relief from the heat? Right? So that's part of that decision, because if you don't have that, if you're in a tent with no running water and don't know what's happening tomorrow, then it does influence and impact whether you have a child or not, right? So there are women all over the world right now who have those issues, right? Who are talking about those issues and grappling with those issues around the decision to have a child. And, you know, we do a comprehensive sex education program called Get Smart Before You Get Sexy, right? And when we were getting ready to do this comprehensive sex education program, we went into the schools and the girls said, okay, y'all want to talk about sex education, but look, we got another problem. We got a problem with sexual harassment. We got a problem with the football team and the freshman girls. And we were like, okay, well, let's talk about freshmen, you know, about sexual harassment. Let's talk about intimate partner violence. So we met those young women where they were. And then from there, they still didn't want to talk about comprehensive sex education. They wanted to talk about menstrual products and the availability of menstrual products. So we were like, okay, we get that, right? Because, you know, the periods can stop a girl from going to school and getting her education, right? Which tremendously impacts her social economic status and her ability to make decisions. And it is amazing that here we are in 2021, 22, and girls still have to grapple with, will I have enough product for my period? Will I be able to go to school? Those type of things. So we were like, okay, let's grapple with that, right? For these young women. So we were able to get their uniform policy changed. I shouldn't say they were able to get their uniform policy changed. Because, you know, how did we fix this problem, right? And then we created some policy around free menstrual products at the schools, right? So the problems that these young women were having were not unique to South Los Angeles, right? There were problems that are worldwide for girls, right? This is a gender issue, right? So it would be great if it was a problem in South Los Angeles, because if it was a problem that was only in South Los Angeles, then we would call up some sisters in Johannesburg or call up some sisters in New Zealand and say, how did y'all solve this problem? And we'll implement that solution here, right? But it's a worldwide problem, right? And we look forward to, at Black Women for Wellness, being able to connect with women around the world, with women globally, so we can begin to share some of the solutions that everybody has found, something that works for all of us, or something that we can tweak and work from here, or something that we, you know, they can tweak that works for there, that type of thing. So reproductive justice, to go back to your original question, means that we are looking at the intersection of all the social justice issues that influence and impact women's decisions around child.
Wow, I think that is a great way to put this. And I was aware about the issues that you were talking about, but I was not aware that there is a holistic term dedicated to all those issues, which is called reproductive justice. So thank you so much for making me aware to that. And definitely this is something that our audiences can also know. This is something very new that I came across. And yes, we got in touch with a lot of non-profits. So we have an International Day of Education campaign running simultaneously along with this campaign. And we got in touch with one of the organizations, and they said that education is not a direct issue. It is a result of the ripple effect that has been created due to a lot of issues, and one of those issues were the basic human rights for all these deprived people, due to which, like you said, that when women and girls are not able to deal with their menstruation cycle, that results into them dropping out of schools, colleges, and dropping out from their education as a whole. So that is something that other nonprofits are also facing the same issue, and I'm so grateful that your nonprofit organization is addressing to the root cause of, I think, a lot of issues. So this can result into future discrimination on the basis of gender gender violences and education and multitude of other issues. So I think Black Women for Wellness is doing some amazing work, and I'm really grateful to get in touch with you for this campaign. And for my next question, more towards the COVID pandemic issue, right? So we recently saw a huge spike in COVID-19 pandemic, and we are still, a lot of countries are still struggling with the COVID-19 pandemic situation, and there are variants coming again and again. So we are not beyond the trouble, but I think the hit that COVID-19 pandemic gave us when it initially started, that was something which every one of us felt in some or the other way. We were pushed into a non-physical virtual environment, be it in terms of relationships, be it in terms of work, or be it in terms of personal living as well. So there have been a lot of non-profit organizations that we have connected with, and all of them agree that there is a huge amount of physical interaction when it comes to the non-profit and beneficiary interaction. Yeah. So I hope, I assume that Black Women for Wellness also must be having a lot of physical interaction with their beneficiaries before COVID-19 pandemic. So now I want to understand that how did COVID-19 pandemic affect your organization, your beneficiaries? What were the challenges posed by the pandemic, and how did you overcome and cope up to those issues, and where are we standing now? Where is Black Women for Wellness standing now in terms of progress and facing those challenges?
Like, I can talk an hour about COVID and its impact on our world, but I'm gonna try to be concise. So Black Women for Wellness offices are in California, and California closed in March 2020. Everybody went home. And everybody was asked to move to this virtual platform, right? It's like before, I feel like Zoom has entered into all of our, worlds now, whereas before, if you had said something about a Zoom call, people would have been like, what? And you would have had to explain it before pandemic, right? So we suggested, to our staff, okay, let's see if we can be in touch via Zoom. Like, let's see how we can do our work virtual, in other words. But not everybody was at the same speed or at the same level in terms of having internet access at home, having the computers they need, or having the ring light, or, having headphones and all the different things that come along when you're now living in a virtual world, knowing how to do it and have IT support, right? So that was the first thing that we had to do, was we had to figure out where people were and then bring everyone up to speed. So that was interesting. I mentioned that we have a civic engagement program called Voting Rules Everything Around Me, GREEN. And with that, our people, our canvas team or our field team, did door knocking and telephone calling and texting. So there was new technology that had to come into place, because the phone banks would generally run out of one space. Now they run out of everybody's phone as opposed to one space. Door knocking, we weren't doing door knocking, right? Nobody was doing that. So, but texting could still go on, but still we had to figure out what the text software or program was we were going to use. So we really, as an organization, and I think as a field, had to, up our game around technology, and made sure that we have the expertise that we needed as we learn these new skills for backup and support. So now we're 1 month into the pandemic. In April, we have a program called Kitchen Divas. And Kitchen Divas is a program that is a food preparation and cooking class, right? And the food preparation and cooking class was about prevention of diabetes. It was about healthy eating, eating for health as opposed to just eating. And it was also one where we were teaching people how to be vegetarians, even though we never said that word, right? So, but now we can't meet in person because there's a pandemic and people are supposed to be social isolating, right? But what we found out was that shut down so many of the businesses in our community. So there were the farmers, because their food in the cooking class was done at a farmer's market. Farmer's market was gone. They couldn't do farming. They couldn't do the market. And so we were like, oh my God, what's gonna happen with all this food? The caterers were out of business because nobody was having a party, right? To be catered, or nobody was having an event. So we figured out, let's do this, right? Let's bring the food. So we put bags of produce together in our parking lot. And then people in the neighborhood and community came by and got a bag of food, and they also got a hot meal. So we worked with a funder, a couple of funders who understood that we could create a win-win situation. A win for the farmers, right? And food wouldn't go to waste, because then there was a food price gouging that started to happen also. We saw pictures of the shelves in, stores where toilet paper and the paper towels and the water was gone, but the food was too, because the farmers couldn't get it to market. So we created a win situation for the caterers because we were able to give away a hot meal, right? And we created a win situation for the community because then they could come and get a bag of produce, get a hot meal, and get recipes for how to do it. And then we went to a virtual cooking class, which was a cooking class online, kitchen. So that was a pivot that we made, that we thought, okay, this is a win-win. And it was great in terms of the creativity on the part of the staff, on the part of the funders who made this happen, the farmers and the caterers and the community. Everybody was happy. Yay. But in addition to that, so when we decided to do this program, we asked for volunteers from the organization to come in and do it, right? And folks volunteered. And I remember one volunteer saying to me that she was at home alone and her depression was really deepening because she wasn't having physical contact with people. She wasn't. And she said being able to volunteer that one day a week just saved her mental health. So the volunteers, in terms of the people who organized and implemented the program, actually got something out of it too, because they got to be useful. They got to be connected with folks and doing good. So that pivot right there helped in so many ways in terms of, okay, we're not going to do just a food preparation and cooking class now. Now we're doing food distribution. Now we have volunteers who come in, and it was a good thing in that regard. So it moved us to a better space that we didn't know we were going to, right? We didn't know what was happening. But it's nice to be able to hear people say to me, whoo, that saved me, right? And so then we started this thing, I called it Tequila Thursdays, because that was the day of the food distribution program. So it was a happy hour. We had a parking lot. Why not? We could social distance and still see each other and, share some food and drink and be in each other's company for a moment. So, and we are looking at where we plan to go with that too. So when I say where we plan to go, we have, I want to say holistic healers who came by, folks who did acupuncture, folks who did cupping, folks who did Ayurvedic therapy, those type of things. And they would offer their services, right? And we were like, okay, people are getting a chance to, try different type of therapies and that type of thing. And so we're looking at how do we keep this up, right? And how do we keep sharing not only the different therapies, but what was said in terms of a public health message was wear masks, be socially distant, wash your hands. They didn't say eat healthy. They didn't say exercise. They didn't say make sure you take care of your mental health. They didn't say vitamin D or vitamin C. They didn't say create a relationship with a provider so you can talk to people about what's going on with your body. They didn't say get mental health. I mean, and those messages were as important as wear a mask, socially distance, and wash your hands, right? So we were able to give more than one message in terms of how do you maintain your health? How do you stay healthy? That type of thing. We've also been able to we've done 2 what we call pop-ups at this point in time. And the first pop-up, we had a drive-through testing. And I think maybe more than 250 cars drove through where we tested the folks in the car for a little bit. That was the first year. This year, we had a pop-up vaccine clinic in partnership with another organization. So folks were able to come and get a vaccine or a booster. So they were able to get any one of the 3, the Pfizer, Moderna, or the Johnson & Johnson. And, we had a little booth where they would sit for the observation, and we would give them literature and health education and talk, and then do a wraparound, like call them a couple of days later, how you doing? So that's some of the stuff that happened.
Wow, I think that is so overwhelming because your organization did so many things and connected so well and on so many aspects with your beneficiaries. Like you mentioned, we did not directly say that take care of mental health, but indirectly, we did something that actually helped them with their mental health, and that helped them with their hygiene and with social distancing, yet keeping in touch with all the others. So I think social distancing did not exactly mean social distancing. It meant physical distancing.
It meant physical distancing.
Exactly.
Yes.
But and people can still be socially connected while being physically distant, and that is something that
absolutely
Black Women for Wellness told the society. That is so amazing, and I think this is so important. At the same time, while COVID hit us, addressing the issue of mental health, physical hygiene and distancing, and at the same time, I love the way that you incorporated society as well into this whole scenario. Like you said, even I can vouch for that. Being a part of Goodera, we also volunteer for a lot of non-profit organizations which are our partners, and I can truly vouch for that volunteering, it is not just about giving. It is something priceless to take away from that experience for volunteers as well, and that is the sense of satisfaction and sense of contributing to the society, which is I think inexplicable, and it cannot be achieved from any other task that we do.
Volunteering is it gives you such a sense of purpose, right? Exactly. And such a sense of, okay, when someone has said, is you paying rent for living on the earth, right? is how validate, my existence. Is you volunteer, you give. And I really don't think people know how valuable it is until they do.
Definitely,
you and I can talk about you should volunteer, but until you do it, you don't get that. Oh, okay, I get that feeling now. Yeah.